Good evening and welcome to the Township of Chatham Township Committee meeting for Thursday, May 31st. Greg, has adequate notice been given?
Yes, adequate notice of this meeting of the Township Committee was given as required by the Open Public Meetings Act as follows. Notice was given to both the Chatham Courier and the Morris County Daily Record on January 5th, 2018. Notice was posted on the bulletin board in the main hallway of the municipal building on January 5th, 2018. And notice was filed with the Township Clerk on January 5th, 2018.
Thank you. Please stand for the flag salute. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Solen?
Here.
Mr. Kelly?
Here.
Mr. Sullivan? Deputy Mayor Schwartz?
Here.
Mayor Ritter?
Here. Motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, first item up for discussion or for talk, as it were, was our proclamation declaring June 1st as National Gun Violence Awareness Day here in Chatham Township. I'll read the proclamation, and then we'll welcome you up to present it to you and take a picture. Obviously, this has been an issue taking place throughout our country for some time now, and it's only more apparent the challenges our country faces when it comes to gun violence. And I think what we've done here in the township in the past several years to raise awareness of mental illness is important as it relates to this cause. And we've hosted an Out of the Darkness walk to support the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. These past couple of years raised over $150,000. We've got our third annual walk taking place this September 21st at Cougar Field. It's a great community event and importantly raises awareness of mental health, of the issues of mental health, and raises funds for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. So I thank you for bringing this to our attention, and I'm pleased to read this proclamation to the record. And it reads as follows. Whereas every day 96 Americans are killed by gun violence, and there are countless others injured. And whereas Americans are 25 times more likely to be murdered with guns than people in other developed countries. And whereas protecting public safety in the communities they serve is a mayor's highest responsibility. And whereas on January 29, 2013, Hadaya Pendleton, a 15-year-old Chicago teen, was killed a week after she walked in the presidential inaugural parade in Washington, D.C., which started a movement to honor the teen by wearing orange, the color that symbolizes the value of human life that hunters wear so no one accidentally shoots them. And whereas to help honor Hadaya and the 96 Americans whose lives are cut short and the countless survivors who are injured by shootings every day, and a national coalition of organizations has designated June 1st, 2018, the first Friday in June, as a fourth National Gun Violence Awareness Day. And whereas anyone can join this campaign by pledging to wear orange on June 1st, the first Friday in June in 2018, to help raise awareness about gun violence. And whereas by wearing orange on June 1st, 2018, Americans will raise awareness about gun violence and honor the lives of gun violence victims and survivors. And now, therefore, I, Mayor Kurt Ritter, call upon all residents of the Township of Chatham to observe June 1st as National Gun Violence Awareness Day in Chatham Township and urge all residents to wear orange to show their support.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much. Can I say a few words? Of course. Is that okay? Does this work? Okay, it does.
On behalf, my name is Fern Walken. I'm the co-leader of the Morris County Moms Demand Action. On behalf of Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America and Everytown for Gun Safety, we thank you with all our hearts, really, for issuing this proclamation marking Gun Violence Awareness Day. We represent hundreds of individuals in Morris County who have come together to reduce gun violence. We applaud you, Chatham Township Committee, for joining us as we honor the 35,000 individuals who died in the last year in the United States. As you are painfully aware, gun violence is a daily occurrence, with 96 individuals dying every day, as you mentioned, and school shootings like the one in Santa Fe, Texas, happening at an alarming frequency. Thank you for joining us in recognition of this American crisis. As you mentioned, Hadia, her own parents have said, by wearing orange, we affirm the right of every American to live a life free from gun violence. Since 2015, Moms Demand Action has continued to honor her legacy by organizing state, local, and national activities to mark Gun Violence Awareness Day by wearing orange. We have partnered with hundreds of mayors, governments, nonprofits, businesses, and individuals to make Gun Violence Awareness Day into a national event. The Empire State Building, the Sears Tower, the St. Louis Arch, as well as other national landmarks turn orange tomorrow. We welcome you to come to tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. to help us turn Morristown orange. Maybe next year we'll turn Chatham Township orange on the steps of Town Hall. And we thank you again for being such a strong partner in our fight against gun violence. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Oh, have a little bit.
Oh, wow.
Some stickers, some handcrafted hearts, and
Cookies?
some information.
Hearts.
No cookies, I'm sorry. The cookies are even better, honestly.
Thank you very much.
F-E-R-N. E-R-N. W-O-L. Thanks again.
I'll be very brief. I'm Jamie McLaughlin. As a resident of the Chathams for almost 20 years, as a Moms Demand Action member, and as a gun violence survivor, my own brother was a victim of gun violence. I want to express my gratitude to the Chatham Township Council for this Gun Violence Awareness Proclamation. This proclamation gives me hope for the future. It gives me hope for our community, emphasis on the unity. And it especially gives me hope for our children. It tells our children that we are aware and that we will work together to find common sense gun safety solutions to ensure their well-being and a brighter future. With knowledge and awareness comes the power to effect change. With this proclamation, we start that process for Gun Sense in America, and we honor all those who have lost their lives to gun violence in our country. My heart is filled with gratitude for this life-affirming action. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you very much.
Mayor, could I just say a word too?
Sure.
I just wanted to say thank you very much for adopting that proclamation, and certainly assure you that, you know, you have I think the entire support of the Township Committee on it as well. And I would hope that, well, just first, I've got my orange shirt here for tomorrow, so I'm ready to go. But you know, there's only so much that a municipal government can do, and I would just hope that the word spreads and rises up the governmental chain of command, and the awareness does grow. I'm proud that here in New Jersey, I think that we've done a lot as a state to try to improve safety, gun safety, and I think it's shown that that really there's a lot that can be done without infringing on constitutional protections. And if the federal government could take that as a guide and take some steps to really do more to promote safety on this matter, I think it would be a great thing.
Great. Thank you, Mike. And you talk about lighting the Empire State Building. We've got one of those light bulbs at my house that changes color, so I'll see if I can figure out how to program it for
Take a picture.
my portico orange tomorrow.
That's
So,
great.
thank you very much. Appreciate it
Thank you
again.
very much. Thank you.
We'll start off with the reports.
Do you
Typhoon?
want to ask Rob, since Rob has
We'll-
come all this way?
We'll do it after.
Okay.
No reports, Your Honor.
Okay. Mike?
Yes, a just from the DPW. After a slow start to the spring, the DPW has swung into its normal routine. They've been working diligently to get the Colony Pool opened last week. They're out on the recreation fields, striping and cutting, not only the fields, but the parks and the public lands around the township. They've launched the annual street sweeping program that gets all of our streets swept twice a year. And they've started to repair potholes and broken curbing. So if anyone out there has a pothole or broken curbing in on their street, please pass the word to the DPW so that they can get it on the list of repairs. And then probably the most important thing, and it does tie back to the debris from the earlier storms, is that the tub grinder did its job down at the composting area. And we now have solved the debris problem, but we've caused a mulch problem, so to speak, in that we have a ton of mulch. So the town delivery mulch program, which normally phases out by this time, is in full swing. So if you have any interest in mulch on your property, you can get it delivered. $25 for 3 cubic yards, $50 for 6 cubic yards delivered right to your property. To make it happen, you have to bring your check to the DPW office on Southern Boulevard, and they'd be happy to deliver it to you. That's it, Mayor.
Is there a wait list for the mulch, or is it you pay and or how long does it take for delivery? Do you know? About a week.
You can always go get it yourself, right?
Yes.
For those who don't mind a little
Sure.
sweat equity.
How about it? Karen?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. A couple of things revolving around our terrific senior community. This past week, the Tri-Towns 55 Plus celebrated their 1-year anniversary of their senior rideshare program. It has been a rousing success in that it has provided great connectivity for our seniors whose concern has been proven and by survey has been played out, that being together, getting to activities, going shopping, going to shows, doing a lot of other things, even babysitting for the grandchildren, is facilitated by knowing they can pick up the phone and call go grandparent and therefore avail themselves of a ride from Uber or Lyft just by setting up an account. A smartphone, once again, is not needed. Cell phone does help. However, right now they are continuing the program. Perhaps the subsidy changes as a result of various foundations' participation. But anywhere there is go grandparent, there is the ability to set up an account and avail seniors of a Lyft or Uber-like ride just by calling them up and setting up an account. Additionally, our Glorious Garden Tour is kicking off this weekend, and tickets will be available even Saturday morning as the garden tour kicks off over at the gazebo in the borough. So you can go 9 a.m., 10 a.m. Saturday morning and pick up tickets to tour our beautiful gardens around the Chathams. So that is the events of our seniors. This coming June 9th is going to be a busy time around the Chathams also. I believe that's Fishawak, but our Green Village Fire Department would like to invite everybody to Firematics. They're playing host this year to a number of fire companies from around the area. The Firematics displays are incredible, exciting competitions and so on. So if you don't know much about what our fire companies actually do to compete and hone their skills for when a real-life emergency does take place, come on out and watch their Firematics display on June 9th. That's a Saturday. That's at Green Village Firehouse. And that's what I got, Your Honor.
Great, thank you, Karen. And I don't know, did we mention that Kevin is actually at Good Grief tonight? He's going to be a little late. Good Grief is an organization that raises funds for children who've lost a parent, and that's why he's late, but we'll wait for him to come back in. Thank you, very good. Just a couple items on my plate. One is to remind residents, as we've articulated in the past on the website and Facebook and elsewhere, this next Monday, June 4th, the EPA is going to be here in the municipal building talking at 2 different sessions, public sessions from 2 to 4, and again from, I believe, 6 to 8, talking about kind of giving an update as it relates to Rolling Knolls, the Superfund site in Green Village. It's been a topic of conversation for many decades, as it were, and this is an opportunity for the EPA to come in here and just give residents an update in terms of what's happening at that site and everything else. Later on this summer, we expect them to come back with a formal plan in terms of the remediation of the place itself. Colony Pool Club, as Mike had mentioned, DPW's done a wonderful job in getting it set up for summer. They had their first weekend last weekend. Great attendance from what I understand. I encourage any residents who have an interest in participating and joining the Colony Pool Club to visit the website again, thecolonypoolclub.org. It's perhaps the best value around as it relates to community pools in the area. So many great amenities, great events for families and young adults as well. So please do that. The other thing I just want to mention, I posted a video on our Facebook page a while back. One of the things I announced as a new initiative, as it were, is called Meal with the Mayor. This is going to be taking place next Saturday, June 9th, another activity for folks to look forward to. At 1 o'clock, I invite all residents who have an interest in joining me for a sandwich and something else and a drink, as it were, over at the Fairmont Country Store, 1 o'clock. If you have an interest in joining me, talk about any issues that are on your mind, things you want to discuss, please email me at critter@chathamtownship-nj.gov, just so we can keep an idea in terms of how many people are going to show up. I welcome everyone to join me for a meal, and we can break bread together and talk about the issues and what we can do better as a committee, and tell you what we're doing here to support you. So that's all I have. John?
Thank you, Mayor. Just update on the Safe Routes to Schools Lafayette grant. It's moving. It's, to be frank, I really don't expect this to really start to break ground possibly 2 years. I really don't think it's going to be, the way it's moving, it's a very slow process. And we also received the Safe Routes to School grant for Shunpike. We met with the consultants and the DOT. We're still waiting for the consultant's estimate and needs to go through a long process to get that ultimately approved. Realistically, I think it's more like a 3-year project that we're actually breaking ground. The process is just taking forever to get through. So Lafayette was a 2014 grant. Shunpike was a 2016 grant. So the 2018 grant announcements just came out. So the grant application is due early August. Plenty of time, but certainly it doesn't. We don't have to submit a grant, obviously, but it's just something for the committee to consider. There's another grant opportunity that's available to us for the Safe Routes to School program. That program does focus on pedestrian traffic to school, so it is a targeted program. There's another program that also runs concurrently with the Safe Routes to Schools, and that's the Transportation Enhancement Grant, and that's another federal program, similar requirements. It drags out just as much as the Safe Routes to School. It takes forever to get a project done, but nevertheless, with the federal grants, it does come with more money, and it's far more than what you get with the municipal aid grants. So the TAP grant, you have a lot of latitude with the TAP grant. It will not cover road resurfacing. It's for more unique projects. It'll cover sidewalks. I think last year we submitted a grant application for Southern Boulevard. We didn't get that application. When I look back at that application, perhaps the fact that under the federal programs, they do want to promote ADA. It's a big promotion that they're on. And looking at Southern Boulevard, we would have to request some exemptions because of technical difficulties of going up the hill. And so and I may just be reading into it, but that certainly is something that may have been worked against us in that one. But nevertheless, so that's one grant that we did. Again, it's a unique program. It does cover trails, and so the mayor did mention possibly a grant application. About 20 years ago, I think it was, there was a concept plan for a trail through Nashfield over to Green Village Road, and that's a unique project. It'll probably be elevated platforms through some of the wetlands, and so that certainly would fall under this grant as for pedestrian movement. It does actually list trails. So the TAP grant does give a lot of opportunities that we can certainly look at, and again, that's due in early August. So certainly, we can start to discuss possible projects. I know our initiatives in the past, if it is going to be a sidewalk, that we make sure that the residents are aware of the application before it goes in, and that we give the public notice. So even though August seems to be a far way, there's a lot of work in order to get the public notified. Identify a project, do some of the legwork, and then notify the public of our possible intent of submitting a grant. So, we do need to start thinking about that program. Morris County just put out a grant application program for trails. That's another program we can look at and trying to think of opportunities there. That program is much smaller. With the TAP grant, I've seen TAP grants issued for $1 million. And I've seen in other municipalities, I've gotten well above 600 for those type of grants. So there's for the federal program, and in fact, you do want it for the federal programs. You don't want to go for a small project because the administrative requirements is just overwhelming, and so you got to really invest in getting a large grant amount. But for the Morris County, looking at some of the grant recipients, it's probably in the 80, 100, might be an average. Looking at what the recipients from last year, some was down as low as 20,000. I think there was one about 150, but that's the range, and so it's probably a trail project that we can look at. So it's just something to consider. I'm just trying to, look at where that opportunity might be. So this is something. The houses on Southern Boulevard, they should be coming down soon. I think with the rain stopped some of the work, but they were scheduled to start today. They're likely going to mobilize tomorrow and do that work. So there was some significant delays in getting the utilities disconnected, and that was the main problem. And a lot of reasons why it got delayed, but nevertheless, we're there. It's going to happen. So nothing else on that. And then just to report on the tree ordinance. We have implemented the program. We had developed an application form, which we hope was clear as you're filling it out. Unfortunately, it has not gotten a good start, and basically there has not been a lot of tree removal permits issued, only because they're not providing the information that we need in order to issue the permits. And getting a lot of pushback from the actual tree companies. They're used to filling out the application in a minute or two and submitting it, and now they actually have to read it. They have to put information down, and they need to go through it. Something unexpected happened is they seem to be now pushing the application on the homeowners. And surprisingly, the homeowner's been filling it out quite well, but but they do have a lot more questions. So it's unfortunate that we're running into a situation where we're just getting enamored with a lot of questions on the whole process, because it's one thing to educate perhaps 10 contractors that do most of the work in Chatham and know how to fill out the application. Now we're filling out every homeowner to have questions. So every single question we get, we look at it, and we're revising the forms again, just to make it, again, as simple as possible, as systematic as possible, so to address those questions. So we'll get there, but it was a bit of a slow start and a rough start. A bit of a shock, I think, to some of the tree companies that we really we need the information and going forward. So just an FYI.
Would it be helpful to have an FAQ to accompany the application as well, so people can?
Yeah, we can do that, Mayor. Yeah,
that might be helpful. That might be helpful for you, and having to answer questions. If it's the top 10 questions you're getting all the time from folks, they can. Sure.
Yep.
And actually, that could be even part of the application, maybe.
Yeah, one thing that we are working on is. I wanted to do this, just didn't have time to implement it, is also having a sample filled out completely, and just, here it is, this is our expectation, fill in all the blanks. We really want all the blanks filled in, and just showing them how to properly fill it out. And I think that might go a long way too, just so that you have an example and you can follow the example.
Great. And in terms of the houses that are coming down and the demolition, is there any discussion with those folks taking it down to be mindful of the trees, and just because they know we're tearing down the houses doesn't mean they should tear down every tree around there as well?
They're really from a lot grading perspective, it's very simple. There really is no bump in the road for that, because their engineers preparing the plan. They're used to reading ordinances. They can adopt quickly, and then we have a detailed engineering plan with trees plotted. It's very easy for us to review and enforce the ordinance from a lot grading perspective. It's really the individual lots with the homeowner taking down one tree or two trees.
No, I was talking about the houses on Southern Boulevard that we're tearing down.
On Southern Boulevard.
Ones we're demolishing.
That one that
Oh,
we're
oh, yeah,
demolishing.
oh, wait.
Yeah,
Oh,
my
yeah.
The
point
one
is
that
like,
ironically, one of them has a tree fell on it.
yeah.
Well, we did not, in the bid specifications, we made sure that they need to protect existing trees, but we didn't put in the bid document that for them to clean up the yard, because there's a number of tree vendors that we can call to do that versus having a markup for a demo contractor to do it.
Yeah, I just want to make sure when they go and demolish the house, they're not like, "Ah, the hell, we can just
Yeah, no,
tear down
no.
this tree and not worry about it."
No, that was very clear in the
Good.
bid, but we'll make sure again.
Oh, I thought we were cutting them all down. We're not? So we can make room for a trail?
There you go.
John, is there any preference on our part whether we have the homeowner or the contractor fill this form out going forward? I mean, is there an advantage one way or the other?
I think it's really we just need all the basic information, and I think the homeowner, and we're getting there with the form to make it as simple as possible for homeowners to be able to fill it out. We would have hoped that there would be more participation from the tree companies who are familiar with ordinance, or I would hope to be familiar with ordinance, but nevertheless, they could assist and take the lead on filling these applications, and then we just educating 10 people versus every homeowner that's coming in.
If I may jump in the previous ordinance, the majority of the applications for tree removals were done by the homeowner, where it was a simple application where they were looking to take down a tree or two, as opposed to the ones that wound up on John's desk where it was a lot grading plan and the tree removal was part of a larger plan and needed engineering involvement. It was a simple application that required identifying how many trees you had on the lot that were protected over the 12 inches, what your tree density calculation was for the lot, and a rudimentary drawing showing the identification of the trees and a simple statement about why you wanted to take it down. So it was a very simple application. The majority of those were done by the homeowner. They did identify their contractor that was going to be doing the work, but it only got more complicated when it was kicked into the lot grading. Now they're all in that status. We've complicated it for the homeowner tremendously. And I gather that was your intention, so it worked.
Well, so certainly there's, there's a lot more documentation. So if someone questions why did that tree come down, we have the full documentation. This was the density. This is how we calculated the density. This is if there's a tree replacement. We have a plan of where that tree was going, and so there's a lot more documentation that's being provided. So I think we're working it out. It's just a report to the committee at this point. We're working it out.
And growing pains.
Each time a tree company comes in to sign off on what they're doing, they have to sign off on the fact that they've read our new ordinance, right?
They do.
Right.
They do.
And
Gotta-
basically, we're probably dealing with a limited number of players, too, right? I mean, we don't have an awful lot of different tree companies coming in.
Yeah,
do we?
one of the things that when we were drafting the ordinance is that there was a discussion regarding what certification are we going to require if they're going to certify regarding a tree that's dead and they don't want to do a tree replacement, or a certification that a replacement is not going to be feasible on the lot because of all the coverage of
Right.
a canopy cover. And so there's provisions in the ordinance, and then also a certification if the one thing that this ordinance does, which the prior ordinance didn't, is that we strictly prohibit the removal of trees within 5 feet of the property line and within 20 feet of the front yard. And so it's a higher scrutiny regarding those in order to remove them. And we don't prohibit the removal of them if they provide a certification from a tree experts basically saying that there's reasons to take that tree down. So that is incorporated. So that certification, as part of that process, we looked at over a year's worth of applications and who was pulling out the application. So we identified basically 15 contractors that were doing the work. Working on the ordinance, we identified the appropriate person that should have the appropriate license would be a licensed tree expert. That's actually what the definition is by the state statutes. And so we called all the companies, and half of them already had them on staff. Another 25% said that they were in the works of getting that certification, and another 25% said they didn't have it or didn't respond. So we had that the licensed tree expert was predominantly something that we weren't restricting a lot of contractors. I have, and I'm not sure if I had the authority to do this, but I have been giving some of the tree companies latitude. If they have a certification from a national certification as a national arborist and certifying that a tree is dead and things, and I can see that it's dead, I'm giving them latitude, and I'm informing them. I'm giving them latitude for a grace period in order to get the license. We don't want to stop their business in town.
Right.
We want to give them an opportunity. So just giving contractors that don't have this license, as long as they have a national recognized license or even the state license, that's not the, there's another state license that's applicable for tree removal. So I'm giving some latitude to allow them to get the license in time. So
I think my point is that once we get past this initial education phase with our, pretty much, our local tree guys, that they will have read the new ordinance, familiarized themselves, been able to sign off with a lot of further ado when it comes to each individual project, so that their knowledge of it will be documented and they'll understand where we are as a township. Obviously, we intended to make it a little bit more onerous, so we have successfully.
Unfortunately, I think the contractors are just signing the form and not reading the ordinance, because I had a big blow up with one contractor who was asking me 100 questions, and I'm like, you certified that you read and understood the ordinance. Why are you asking me all these questions? And so I hope in time they'll realize that the ordinance is being strictly enforced and that you need to follow it.
Great.
John, can I ask you about our local street paving schedule, how we're doing? I've seen some improvements on our roads, certain places that were on the schedule, how we're doing with the other paving projects.
We would, I should have a resolution to the committee probably next meeting regarding an award of a contract for the Morris County Co-op to implement our 2018 DOT grant application. So we're geared up to pave, and our target is to pave during the summer, so
Great.
the less impact.
Okay,
Great.
thank you.
And in terms of the various grant applications, what do you suggest next steps? Is it you come up with a list of different things and the committee can review it, or is it just, what do you recommend?
With the safe routes to school, frankly, we got, I'm not sure if it's really a discussion to how much sidewalks are we putting in. We not want to apply for, we have basically the key areas of Lafayette, and we have the Shumpike and the proximity to schools. Really, for me, it's looking back at our 2008 bike and pathway report, and that was what the planning board did to make the recommendation. Now, is that still valid? That probably should be revisited, that plan. So certainly I can pull that plan, look at those, but one thing that we were certainly discussing, looking at from Noe to connect it to Shumpike Field, there's a section there. If we truly want to continue Shumpike, that's one area. But
That wouldn't be safe routes to school, though. In terms of safe routes to school, I think we're pretty much done.
I would tend to agree with, because when you look at the travel plans in the areas, it's
Yeah, assuming those two sidewalk that we get, that the grants for actually get built on Shunpike and then Spring and Lafayette, the travel plan to get people to Southern Boulevard School and to Lafayette Avenue School are completed. And the high school is not included in a safe routes to school eligibility. So
Correct.
I think when you look at the mapping, we're done with that.
Yeah, but Lafayette would be.
Lafayette would be, but the grant on Shunpike covers that.
But I'm saying, if you could always think about on Fairmont, from Southern Boulevard to connect to, on the left side there, on Fairmont, in the borough, the sidewalk kind of just ends just before the sign.
We can certainly submit other grant applications, but they're not going to be viewed as heavy as these two grants that we got approved. Those were truly, connectors, and certainly we could start to looking at some fingers and going out, but it's not going to, they are competitive grants. Mm-hmm. Certainly they you submit and you may not get the grant. It has to be competitive. So anything that we would submit at this time, I think, is going to be very, low, very difficult to get approved.
Sure.
Do we consider the area around the Cougar Field complex to be part of the school, since it's Board of Ed? Does that part of Safe Routes to School, even though it's recreation?
No. It wasn't really discussing the travel plans as being part of the schools. So that's really what your guidance document is, the travel plans, where the traffic is going, where the pedestrian traffic is, and it really, it's going to be a stretch, whatever we do.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, Pine Street would probably be, the one that would be most advantageous, but it's also very narrow. When we looked at that before, there's really not much room to put a sidewalk.
But it is starting to get into a residential neighborhood.
It is,
Which,
yeah.
That
Yeah,
has
then-
not been a preference to put,
Right.
doing that. So.
Great, thank you, John. Well, I was going to come back to you, Rob, but I don't want you to be sitting around the meeting the whole night. If you have something to say and want to come forward.
Well, good evening, Mayor and Committee. Rob Walden, Jersey Central Power and Light, 52 Chatham Road, City of Summit. As you may recall, we had some very severe storms beginning of March 2nd, and again on March 7th. I've not been to a committee meeting since then, so I wanted to stop in, take any questions or answer any concerns you might have had during those storms. Just to give you some data for the storms from our end, 529,000 customers lost power as a result of both storms. 3,000 spans of wire came down. 1,900 roads were closed. And the big number for us was 5,600 trees fell and broke our poles, wires, and other equipment. So that's the real culprit during these events, is the trees. So from my standpoint, let people cut down as many trees as they want to. But certainly I understand your concern for keeping your tree canopy. But we had a really rough time with those two storms. Obviously, customers experienced prolonged outages. We did the best we could to get folks back as quickly as possible. It was a trying time for us. Our guys worked 16-hour days for 12 straight days, and when the storm was over, they went back to work for a few more 16-hour days to do some storm cleanup. So it's been a rough go for JCP for a while. But I want to take your questions or answer any concerns you might have about the storm.
One thing that comes up a lot, and we've discussed it here, and I know we've discussed it myself with other First Energy representatives, people talk a lot about burying the utility wires, and it comes up in conversation a lot, and it comes up from a technical perspective or a rudimentary perspective, and sometimes just an anecdotal perspective. When you and I, when we had a conference call during the terrible weather, it was estimated for a rough number, $1 million a mile. And that would be a cost that would be passed on to the customers, right? And I'm sure the regulatory hoops that would have to be, you concur with
Yes,
that.
you want me to expand on that? $1 million a mile was the estimate that we developed following Hurricane Sandy, when the BPU said, what would it cost just to do it all? The most recent number is $2.2 million per mile. That was a study done in Massachusetts to bury their wires. Massachusetts is not that dissimilar to New Jersey in density and in construction. So it's a very expensive proposition. And it sounds simple, but all of the transformers, all the switches, all the devices you see on those poles, those all have to find room underground or at ground level to be out to occupy. You also have to trench or bore. So while you're no longer trimming trees, you are getting into the roots of trees. It's not as clean and simple as just burying the wires. Every single homeowner who has an overhead service would have to get a brand new meter pan and brand new service to their home, because the wire comes down into the house, now it would come up into the house, so every homeowner would have an added expense. It's a big to-do.
Right.
It's a very expensive proposition. Certainly if we were starting from scratch, we would do it all underground, but to maintain the existing overhead and build an underground system to match it, it would be very, very expensive and time-consuming.
The improvements that you're doing to the Long Hill, is it Long Hill, the Gillette substation, would those improvements ultimately roll into preventing that area of town from going out? I know a lot of people at the southern end of the
Yes.
township claim
We're
to
doing-
experience a lot of different outages.
One of the things we're doing is we have, back up a little bit. On our system, we have circuit breakers, very similar to what you have in your home. So a tree falls on a wire, causes a short, the circuit breaker trips. You call the power company, we come out, we look for the offending limb, we find it, we throw the breaker back in, you're back in power, usually less than 2 hours. A lot of those breakers are being replaced with what's called reclosers. And reclosers operate the same as a breaker, but they reclose after 30 seconds to restore power. And if the offending limb or animal has fallen off the wire, then power comes back on and you're back to normal. You have a 30-second loss of power. If we take those reclosers and put them in sequence, we have what's called a recloser loop. And that will automatically move power from one part of a circuit to another. So when you have an outage, instead of having 300 customers out for 2 hours, you'll have 250 customers out for 30 seconds as these reclosers automatically work, isolating that outage, making those outages smaller in scope, and shorter in duration for folks. Those are the kind of things we're trying to employ. We do have some ties with Gillette and Ridge and some of the other substations in the vicinity of Chatham Township. So as we begin to roll those out more and more, you'll see a lot of those automatic reclosers in operation, and those longer outages will be reduced.
Thanks, Rob.
Rob, if I could build on something that John was just talking about, the trail and the kind of the plan that was developed a number of years ago about having a trail greenway in the township. The greenway would eventually get to the JCP&L right-of-way that crosses Southern Boulevard and runs west,
Okay.
with one branch going up to Fairmont Avenue, the other going out toward Long Hill. Does JCP&L have any kind of a policy or examples that you could give on how that may or may not be doable in terms of incorporating it into a trail system to use that right-of-way to get people off the roads and out into nature and from place to place?
Yeah, we have several instances where our rights-of-way are used for recreation purposes. New Providence is the most glaring example. They put soccer fields and ball fields underneath our 230 kilovolt transmission line. So we do allow it. We don't like having structures underneath the lines. We want to keep things below a certain height. But having recreational trails, things of that sort, is perfectly acceptable and not an issue.
Okay, good news. Thank you.
Sure.
Really interesting.
That's it.
And I know we're going to be in touch in terms of the pole over on Southern Boulevard as well.
Yes.
Try to figure something out
Yes,
there.
presuming that PSE&G allows us to put it underneath their lines and that we can find a space that's far enough away from that gas line there, we should be able to accommodate. Not a
Great.
problem.
Thanks for your help again, as always.
All right. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thanks,
Thank
Ron.
you.
Good to see you. Thanks for coming by.
Chief? Rich? Tom?
Nothing really to report, Mayor, but I'd like to suggest, and I know you already approved the agenda, but perhaps when we get to the discussion items, we could talk about the June schedule. As it stands right now, we're scheduled to have another meeting a week from tonight, and there's really not much in the way of an agenda. And then the other meeting in June wasn't until June 28th, and I don't remember why those dates were set at the beginning of the year, but maybe
I
we
was
want
going
to,
away
maybe
or
we want to
something.
think
I
about
don't either.
revisiting that, and we could talk about it later.
Sure. We'll add it. Now open up to a hearing of citizens. Maureen?
As the only person here, Maureen Kelly, 67 Mountain Avenue. I only had one small concern, and it's regarding the planning board that seems to have canceled their workshop meeting on Monday, which I know can happen. I just wanted to compliment them on how quickly they attacked and with such diligence produced a tree ordinance. So I know that they were charged by the Township Committee to start working on our building codes and other things and the McMansion problem. So, I understand this is just one meeting that they're having canceled, but I just would like to be, I would like them to work as expeditiously as possible and with the same vigor, and hopefully with good results. But I know it's a much more complicated problem, so it could take a long time, and I was disappointed to see that the workshop meeting was canceled. That's all.
There's also the EPA during that same time slot, so it was canceled partially due to a desire for board members to be able to attend
Okay.
that,
Oh, okay.
which you're welcome to attend that to find out what's happening with
I
rolling
know,
mills.
I can go in the afternoon or the evening that day, right? No, I'm not going to do both. Thank you.
Maureen, if I can just comment on the enormous amount of work it took, particularly
Oh, yeah.
on John's behalf, to put those examples together, to lay the groundwork for the planning board to address
Mm-hmm.
the improvements or, total redo of
Right.
the tree
No.
ordinance. It was a lot of work. It was
I
a real
I know that, yeah,
enormous,
absolutely.
right. And so whereas maybe we look at the glacial pace of government in and of itself, and maybe you could think the planning board did act pretty expeditiously. There was really a pretty behemoth amount of
It
work that
was.
went into just setting the table so we could have moved forward.
Right.
I don't know whether anything could have been in place enough to address these issues on Monday, because it's
Yeah,
coming very
okay.
fast.
Yeah, okay. So I'm just looking forward to attending those meetings.
There you go. We're looking forward to having you, Maureen.
And from someone who's worked in municipal government for over 30 years, I can tell you that sometimes it's better if they go slow.
Yes, right.
All right. Thank you. We'll close out the hearing of citizens. Now moving on to Ordinance 2018-12 for final adoption. It's repealing Section 30-34A, referral to Tree Protection Committee. This is part of the tree ordinance. Any comments on this? Open up for public hearing. Close the public hearing. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second it.
Mr. Selin?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Swartz?
Yes?
Mayor Ritter?
Yes. We have 3 items.
Can I interrupt, because there was something that I think maybe should have been reported on and wasn't. Typhoon, you want to tell us about your daughter?
Second?
You want to
very
tell
good.
everybody
That's
about
right.
your daughter?
You want to brag a little bit? Come on.
No.
Yes.
Yes, you should.
My daughter has
Thank
got
you.
an award, and, well, you're embarrassing me right now.
I'm not embarrassed.
I'm embarrassing her probably if she's watching. I'm embarrassing you. So yeah, she's got an award, and she is, she was awarded as the Caring Student of the Year 2018, and received the award at Morris County Counselors Associations. That's the entity gives the award, and she has received this award because of her work with Yamba Malawi. That's the organization helps the poor kids in Malawi in Africa, and that's a country that has no resources that we have here, and it's like many countries in Africa. And she worked with this nonprofit Yamba Malawi, and she did fundraising, and she did teaching and tutoring, and she did a lot of things for that organization, and it was a big surprise to her, and obviously it was a big surprise to us, but it was a great surprise. So thank you for
Congratulations.
embarrassing me. I appreciate it.
Very good. Now moving on to 4 ordinances here. The first one is ordinance 2018-13, installation of stop signs on Highland Avenue and Hall Road. Thought we might have had some neighbors and residents out for this. Anybody have any conversation? We discussed it to some extent last meeting. Chief, you want anything to say on this? Did we ever, and it relates to these sort of things in terms of road calming activity, do we ever put in like, or thought about putting in, not bumps, but the rumple, what do you call those, rumple strips? Where you dig out the roadway? You know what I'm talking about? Like when you're driving on the highway, you go on the side, blah, 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 blah. Do we ever think about?
No, we could do a test project in your neighborhood if you'd like.
We don't have any issues on our neighborhood though.
Well, I think the first people to raise a hand would be our Department of Public Works, because when it comes to paving, not paving, when it comes to plowing, those rumble strips in the wintertime in foul weather, it can be a real challenge. They're very
holes,
hard.
not bumps. They're holes, not bumps though.
So you would go over them and not under them.
Well, it's a hole in the ground. So if anything, the holes fill in with snow. Do you know what I'm saying?
As opposed to raised
A
ridges.
raise to a bump where you got to raise the plow.
Being used as a traffic calmer. Used on the side of the highway, obviously, let it be that.
Well, you see them when you go to the Easy Pass. When you go to the toll booth, you see them.
When you come
You
off,
feel 'em.
come off 287 to Route 80.
That's not through painting, that's a paint, that's an elevated paint on the road.
So they are elevated.
It's elevated.
Raised ridges on the roads. Yeah.
Again, like Tom said, the biggest complaint that you'll get is noise, with the rumbles. It's problematic.
All right, throw it out there. All right, do you have a motion to approve?
Just a quick comment, Mayor, if I may. I mean, I guess I'm disappointed too that we haven't heard more from neighbors. I mean, I think it kind of puts the larger onus on our police department. I mean, if, I think that we're trying to respond to, at this point, one person's complaint, it seems to me, and our police department's recommendation of what the intelligent solution is to it. And without the neighborhood really agreeing to it in advance, we run the risk that we have half a dozen more people coming out next time and saying, no, it should have been X instead of Y. So I guess thank you, Chief, for coming forward, because I guess as I said, it puts a burden on you to really assure us. We did this before on Henry Drive and on Marion, and we did it as a traffic calmer. And it wasn't until after we passed the ordinance on Henry Drive that one or two residents from Ormond came out and said the problem with the stop sign on Henry is there's an incline up to the stop sign. They're concerned with bad weather, and that was their concern. Yet no one was concerned coming down the hill, probably the same issue. Not a big issue. One woman came in. There wasn't a big, overwhelming objection to the installation of the stop sign. That went away. It's been no issue. The speeding complaint has gone away in that neighborhood. At least I have not heard of any more speeding complaints. So those stop signs work. Then we addressed the issue on Sandy Hill, where at first it was going to be 3 4-way stops, and then there was the issue of the one resident on Aberdeen drawing to our attention that it would absolutely eliminate any parking in front of his home for his guests because of the 50-foot setback and the width of his property and his driveway. So we corrected that problem. There's no problem here with installing these stop signs. We're taking two uncontrolled intersections and we're simply controlling them. Both are on a slight decline, neither of which are on an incline. There's nobody here because how in the world could you object to the stop signs? You're taking an uncontrolled intersection and essentially you're making it safer. And I know what Mr. Sullivan's concerned about future enforcement of those signs. If we're there and there's a violation, we have an obligation to react, more so probably in those neighborhoods with education than enforcement. So you can't go wrong, and I think that's the reason why there's nobody here. And I think that's why the young lady who was here the last time, who I encouraged to get a petition signed as opposed to having everybody come to the meeting to speak, is not here with the petition because there was just probably overwhelming support and no objections to the stop sign. So you can't go wrong with the stop signs. The issue now is that if we put the stop signs out on the table and we don't put them in, God forbid something happens, now what do we do? So we put it out there. I made the recommendation. The resolution's there. So I'll stick with the initial
By
recommendation.
introducing the ordinance, we're inviting the public to come and discuss it at the date that
Then
we apply to it when we go forward.
the next meeting, and that's when you're going to vote,
Right.
right? So, perhaps something's changed last minute like it was on Sandy Hill, or it's not. Or someone comes in here and nobody votes for it. So.
Exactly. Thanks, Chief. Any other comments?
Thank you, Chief.
Motion to introduce,
So moved.
second.
Seconded?
Mr. Solon?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Swartz?
Yes?
Mayor Ritter?
Yes.
Pending our discussion later on the meeting schedule, for now, the public hearing will be set for June 28th.
Great. The next three ordinances, Tom, you want to address these? Albert? It's ordinance 2018-14, establishing Office of Municipal Prosecutor.
Mr. Mayor, you may recall that this conversation started when you were appointing a new tax collector. At that point, it was determined that the administrative portion of the Township Code lacked certain positions that you had in your salary ordinance. And at that time, the administrator made the recommendation that you would see ordinances coming before you to fill those gaps in your administrative code. So tonight, you have ordinances for the municipal prosecutor, tax assessor, and zoning officer. Those positions, while they exist in your salary ordinance, do not exist in the administrative code. So that is what the purpose of these ordinances is, to create those positions in the administrative code, your ordinance book.
Right.
And there will be others periodically that will come until the salary ordinance and the ordinance, the administrative code are in line.
All right, thank you. Any questions, comments? Motion to introduce?
I'll make the motion to
Is
introduce.
there a second?
So moved. Second.
Mr. Solon?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Swartz?
Yes.
Mayor Ritter?
Yes. Next, okay, sorry, Greg.
Yeah, same deal with, as with the last one, June 28th, unless we change the meeting schedule.
Great. Next, ordinance 2018-15, establishing Office of Tax Assessor. Any comments? Motion to introduce?
So moved.
Second?
Seconded?
Mr. Solon?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Swartz?
Yes?
Mayor Ritter?
Yes. Next, ordinance 2018-16, establishing Office of Zoning Officer. Motion to introduce, or any comments? Motion to introduce?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Mr. Selin?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Schwartz?
Yes.
Mayor Ritter?
Yes. Next item up is the consent agenda. Anybody have any questions on these before Greg reads them off? All right, Greg, you want to read them off?
This evening, we have Resolution 2018-98, receipt of reports, 2018-99, approving meeting minutes, 2018-100, approving executive session minutes, 2018-101, refunding overpayment of taxes, 2018-102, authorizing estimated tax bills, 2018-103, refunding overpayment of commercial sewer fee, 2018-104, releasing escrow balances, 2018-105, purchasing standby generator for River Road Firehouse, and 2018-106, purchasing automatic transfer switch for River Road Firehouse.
Thank you, Greg. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Selin?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Schwartz?
Yes.
Mayor Ritter?
Yes. Two items for discussion. The first one is Pilgrim Pipeline Legal Services. If you want to say anything, Tom, or I can just basically...
Basically, you'll recall, I guess going back a couple of years ago now, we joined the group of other municipalities that engage the services of legal counsel to watch for the Pilgrim Pipeline issues and to litigate, I guess, as needed. There was a specific limit to the amount of our participation, and we have exhausted that. So they've continued to work, they continue to send bills, and I wanted to know whether you want to continue to participate officially and to continue spending our money on that, or what you want to do. So,
What was it, like $5,000 change annually or something?
I believe the first year, the first authorization I think was 5,000, up to not to exceed 5,000. I think that's correct.
I guess the good news is the pipeline has not reared its ugly head thus far, but I think a good defense is a good offense, so I would be in favor of maintaining this legal counsel. I'm not aware of any municipalities who have bailed at this point, so.
Right, that's a question that I have. Are the towns that went in as invested as Chatham Township, are they all still?
I don't know.
I haven't heard of
Albert, do you
anyone.
know?
I think they all are, but I'm not sure. I know one of the other towns that I represent is in, and has not withdrawn, and at the beginning of this year, they adopted a similar ordinance authorizing the continuation. But that's only 2 out of 15. I'm not aware of the others.
So if we were to move forward with the introduce an ordinance at the next meeting, you're saying, or is it just?
It's just a discussion.
This is to, as Tom said, the authorization
To continue.
expired. The cap was reached, now you want to authorize a new amount, and that resolution, I presume, will have another new amount in
Gotcha.
it.
Anyone have any comments?
I think, as you said, it's probably good to just have an extra layer of legal representation and working as a coalition with other communities that may be equally affected. Obviously, we had some yeoman work done towards our own interests, Chatham Township, as it pertains to the Passaic River and the Great Swamp and other natural resources that we feel so important to protect. But as far as joining or continuing to join together with the communities that are equally invested in the pipeline goings-on, I think is important.
All right.
I agree.
All right.
I agree. Yeah, I think it's a good investment, and I think for everything we hear, that if things did start to move forward, we'd be in a much better position to have this action taken in advance rather than have to lose some time getting up to speed.
All right, so we'll do a,
With Albert's permission, I'd like to have you approve it by motion tonight with a memorializing resolution at the next meeting.
great. Is there a motion to approve?
Yeah, and I would suggest along the same terms,
Yeah.
not to exceed, basically just extending the resolution previously done through the end of this year.
Motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
You say all in favor, or is it, you got a roll call?
I would do a roll call.
Okay.
Mr. Selin?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Schwartz?
Yes.
Mayor Ritter?
Yes. Next item for discussion is our June meetings. We've got one next week and another one the 21st, I want to
Let's
say.
just keep on coming.
28th.
Yeah, and therein lies the issue. We have one a week from now, and really not much new on the agenda. The ordinances that you just introduced would not be ripe for public hearing yet. A week isn't enough time. So I don't remember why at the beginning of the year, the 7th and the 28th were selected. There obviously were some conflicts in people's schedules. But I'm asking you to take a look at your calendars again and consider canceling next week and maybe moving the 28th meeting to the 21st, if that works. If we're only going to do one in the month. Otherwise, you can leave it at the 28th, that's fine. The only real business that needs to be done is the, approval of a bill list, but, if that waits till the 28th, so be it.
This might be an appropriate time to say that I have a conflict coming up for the single meeting in July. So I'm going to be missing that one on the dates that it's scheduled for now.
All right, how about start with June?
Because I have something for August.
I don't mind telling you, I have no plans to go anywhere as usual.
So you guys want to move it to the 21st, or you want to keep it at the 28th? I can't do the 21st, but that doesn't make it.
I'm fine with whatever you choose.
So cancel the 7th and just do it on the 28th, you're saying?
Or do we want to move to the
Or cancel
14th
the 7th and 28th and do the 21st.
Oh,
and just have one meeting in June? That being the 21st.
Or the 28th?
Or well, that would be a long time between cups of coffee.
First question is, do you want to have a meeting next week to come in and approve a bill list and go home?
I don't think it's necessary.
No.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I
So
would recommend doing the 21st then, because if you don't meet next week, then all the bills that need to be paid won't get paid until the 29th if we don't meet till the 28th.
Greg, of the things that we talked about today, when you talked about scheduling public hearings for these things, can they be moved to the 21st as well?
Yes, yeah, it's just that they can't be done on the 7th because it
No,
won't be
too
published
soon.
in the paper until then. But they can certainly be, the public hearing can be done on the 21st.
So 21st, only one meeting in June. Is that what we're agreeing?
I'm fine with that.
All right, I'll miss you guys.
Oh,
We'll miss you too.
We'll miss you too, Kurt.
All right, so the 21st will be our June meeting. Now, since we're talking meetings. Mike?
So all those ordinances that were introduced tonight, for benefit of the press who's here and anyone watching at home, the public hearing will be June 21st.
Perfect, thank you. And our July meeting is slated for the 12th, the 19th? Or which can't you make it?
Third Thursday.
19th,
There's only one meeting in July, right?
yep. You can't make that, Mike?
Yeah, I'm going to be out of town.
Okay.
Just
Wow.
to
FYI?
alert you, just FYI more than
Okay.
anything else.
It's a clean slate.
Very good.
Okay.
Anything else for discussion?
I do, Your Honor.
All right.
In absence of our sort of self-proclaimed historian, I don't think we can let the meeting go by without noting the passing of former Mayor Irv Hogue. Irv and his wife, Susan, both served as mayor of Chatham Township, and Irv passed away just last week on the 19th. And we were gathered at our Memorial Day ceremony at Green Village earlier this week, when our colleague Bailey Brower gave a very lovely tribute to the many areas of service, not only to Chatham Township and the surrounding communities, but also to a grateful nation. Irv served in the Marine Corps, a member of the Greatest Generation. He came home like so many great veterans have done, and continued a legacy of public service, and most, of course, for us here in Chatham Township, most dedicatedly as serving the community and serving as mayor. So to his wife Susan, who at one point in time had a seat on our dais, and to his many relatives, children, grandchildren, etc., and to so many who remembered him fondly, we wish to thank Irv and to pass along our gratitude to his family for his service. I know all of us who had the opportunity to know or meet Irv enjoyed his fraternity, and certainly we will Keep his family in our thoughts and prayers. And Susan, if you're out there watching, we're all with you, and you have our deepest sympathy. And so thank you for your time for that, Mayor.
Thank you. Any other items for discussion? All right, we'll now open up for hearing of citizens, if Maureen would like to come forward. All right, we'll close out the hearing of citizens. We have executive session.
Anyone wants extra? There are 3 more.
We're gonna pass them out to the regular crew.
Resolution 2018-P-07, resolution of the Township Committee of the Township of Chatham in the County of Morris, State of New Jersey, authorizing conference of the Township Committee with the public excluded. Whereas NJSA 10:4-12 of the Open Public Meetings Act permits the exclusion of the public from a meeting in certain circumstances, and whereas the Township Committee of the Township of Chatham is of the opinion that such circumstances presently exist, now therefore be it resolved by the Township Committee of the Township of Chatham, County of Morris, State of New Jersey as follows. Now therefore be it resolved by the Township Committee of the Township of Chatham, County of Morris, State of New Jersey as follows. 1, the public shall be excluded from discussion of the specified subject matter. The general nature of the subject matter to be discussed is as follows. Litigation in the matter of the Township of Chatham for a judgment of compliance of its third round housing element and fair share plan, docket number MRS-L-1659-15. Litigation, Fair Share Housing Center versus Township of Chatham, docket number MRS-L-000234-18. It is anticipated that the minutes on the subject matter of the executive session will be made public upon conclusion of the matter under discussion, and in any event where appropriate pursuant to NJSA 10:4-7 and 4-13, the committee will come back into regular session and may take further action. This resolution shall take effect immediately.
Thank you, Greg. Is there a motion to approve? So moved. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Mr. Solen?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Swartz?
Yes.
Mayor Ritter?
Yes.